So it was a Friday afternoon around 4:30. The kids were gone. They were out with all their other friends, and Yvette had just gotten home from work. I was driving home from the office, and I only live 4 or 5 minutes from where I work. So I'm on the phone, I'm hungry, I know she's hungry, so I say that question that we always ask the wives. So where do you want to go? Where do you want to go eat? And she said, I don't care, anywhere you want to go eat. So I was wanting pho, Vietnamese food, so I suggested that. How about pho? And she said, nah, I don't really feel like that. I said, okay, so where would you like to go? And she said, I don't care, anywhere you want to go. And then I was like, okay, how about let's get some Italian food. Why don't we go over to the Venetian? Get a glass of wine, maybe a pizza, some pasta, and a salad. Nah, I don't feel like that. I said, okay, so where do you want to go? I don't care, anywhere you want to go. So I'm like, okay, how about we go over to Old Town Mex? We get, maybe some tacos, a margarita, just have a good time. Nah. So by this time, I'm right around the corner. I live on top of a hill. So I'm going up the hill, and my phone is on the car. It's just sitting right there on the car. And I see that little red button, that's on the phone. And I just hit the red button. I hang up on her. So then I pull up to the house a minute later, and I walk in the door, and she looks at me and says, did you hang up on me? And I'm lying now. I said, no, I didn't hang up on you. Something happened. And she's like, you hung up on me. I said, no, I didn't hang up on you. It's just something happened on the phone, bad connection. 5 minutes later, she's in our bedroom, in the bedroom, playing crossword puzzles, and I'm at the TV going to watch CNN or ESPN or something like that. And I'm like, this sucks, So, it's about 4:45 now, and I live right around the corner from the beach. So I decided I'm just going to go down to the beach, and I don't really know why we're fighting, but whatever. So I have a journal. I always have journals all the time. So I grab my journal. I thought I grabbed my journal. And I get to the car and I start driving down to the beach. Now, on my way to the beach, I'm rehashing the fight that we just had. And I'm thinking, all you had to do is just say yes, and we'd be on our way to pho, or yes, and we'd be on our way to Italian food, or yes, or we'd be on our way to Old Town Mex, eating Mexican food. But she didn't. What she said was, I don't care, anywhere you want to go. So I gave her some options. And this is ridiculous. And I was trying to figure out, why are we fighting? I was doing everything I needed to do. I thought I was doing the right thing, being cool about it. But it's like we're getting a fight. And what I realized that day is that this fight that we were getting into is not unlike some of the other fights that we've gotten into in our life, just over really stupid things. So I get to the beach and I go to grab my journal, and it's not there. I left it in the house. And what I do in the journal, if you see my journal, every time I have a question in my journal, I'll put a question mark in the journal, and then I'll write out what the question is, and that's what I'll journal about. But I didn't have my journal that day, so I wasn't able to do that. So I'm at the beach, and so I'm thinking, why are we fighting? What's going on? Why are we fighting? That's the question I want to figure out. Why are we fighting? And so I'm walking on the sand, so I read a question mark in the sand, and I'm like, why are we fighting? And I walk a little bit trying to figure it out, what's going on. I thought I did all the right stuff. I thought I said all the right things. I can't think of anything else I did. What's going on? And then about 4 or 5 minutes later into the walk, I think about this situation that I got into when I was in 8th grade. Now, when I was in 8th grade, I hung out with these two guys. One was named Mark and the other was John. And Mark was a short guy. He was kind of like a Bruce Lee kind of guy. He had one of those Bruce Lee haircuts. And then John was a lot bigger. And I'm telling you, in 8th grade, John had a full goatee. He was probably supposed to be an 11th grader. He got held back. But John was the biggest guy in the class, right? So we hung out. We were thick as thieves, all that. And one day, I'm walking to the cafeteria. I go into the cafeteria. I'm supposed to meet them. And there's this crowd in the corner, and you can tell there's a fight. It's that particular type of crowd where there's a fight. So what I do is I run up there because I want to see the fight, right? So I go up and I make my way to the front of the crowd, and look who's fighting. Mark and John, they're right there. And then they're not really throwing blows, but they're wrestling, right? So I reach down and I pull them apart. So with my left arm, I push Mark to the ground, and I pull John with my right hand, and he has a shirt on, right, a button shirt. And as I grab his shirt and I push him away, I rip his shirt. I pop a button out of his shirt. So now remember, John's a big guy, right? So then John hits my arm, goes back like this, and he gets back, he's ready to punch me. And this all happened in just a second. So he gets back, he's ready to punch me. I grew up in kind of a tough neighborhood, so it's going to be a fight. So I'm backing up. I know I'm going to get killed. I know John is going to clobber me, right? But I figure maybe I can get a couple punches in or something. So I back up, and I'm sitting here with my fist, like ready to punch him. And I go, John, why are we fighting, dude? And his arms were like this, like he was going to hit me. And then he dropped his arms. He goes, I don't know. And he reaches over and he grabs Mark's hand and he picks Mark up and they walk off. That was it. That story has been in my head. I've tried to figure out like what was happening ever since I was a little kid. So I'm walking on the beach and I go, this must have something to do with what's going on. Like, why are we fighting? Oh yeah, I asked John, why are we fighting? So I'm like, all right, let me think about this. So I started thinking about this, thinking about what happened. And then another thought popped into my head from about 15 years earlier when I was 30 years old. Now, when I was 30, I used to be a real estate agent. And being a real estate agent, it's a cool gig, right? It's a good job. And I sold a lot of real estate and I helped a lot of people out. Now, I had a client named Hector and his wife was named Sylvia. Now, Hector was a coach at San Diego State and Sylvia was a principal at a junior high school. And so we found a house, but they needed to work on their credit and they didn't have enough money for the down payment and closing costs. So everybody pitched in. I pitched in some of my commission. The loan officer dropped some of his fees. The other agent helped out a little bit. The seller paid some closing costs. Escrow dropped their fees. Like, everybody helped out. Everybody that was involved in the transaction helped out. And we got the deal closed. Really, really cool. So it comes time for me to do what I do in real estate. So in real estate, what I do is I'm always asking for business because I built my whole business on referrals. So I invite Hector and Sylvia to the house because I'm going to have them fill out some paperwork. We closed, but we haven't finished everything up. So I invite them over to the house. I'm going to give them their keys. I have some wine, some champagne, some cheese, a gift card from Home Depot, all ready to go. So Hector drives a big one of those big monster trucks, right? So I can hear it coming down the street, and I'm excited because we just closed the deal and all that, and I'm excited. So I run out and run out into the driveway, and then I'm on the driver's side because Hector pulls up this way, so I'm on the driver's side. I got a big smile on my face, and Hector jumps out and he gives me a big hug. Yeah, thanks man, awesome. All right, cool, And then I see Sylvia walk around the truck and she looks pissed off. She looks totally frosty, like cold. And that's not really her personality, but it's kind of her personality. She doesn't do a lot of talking. She's kind of a quiet person. So I figured maybe they're fighting or something. I figured they're fighting, right? So we walk through the house and we're going in the different rooms and I take them into the kitchen. And I have the champagne and the wine and the cheese and the gift card. Everything's set up right there. And so I start to tell him, Hector, Sylvia, you were referred to me by Elizabeth. Elizabeth is one of the teachers where Sylvia works at, and I sold her house, and she bought another house through me, so she liked what I did, so she referred me to you. And how I build my business is through referrals. So if I did a good job, and then right then Sylvia's hand came up like this, and she said, Martine, we won't be referring you anybody. And I'm thinking, what the, I just everything's going through my head. I help with closing costs. I got him this house. We helped him with everything, got everybody to pitch in. And I'm thinking this just in 1 second, I'm like, this is bullshit, I helped you guys out and blah, 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 and all this. And I'm like, I'm going to take my wine and I'm going to take my champagne and my cheese and my gift card and all that. And right as I was doing that, I look over and I see Hector and he looks at Sylvia and he says, honey, is there something wrong? And she starts to cry. And as she's starting to cry, she says, ever since we had our offer accepted, all I could think of is when I would get my house, when we close escrow, and I'd have my keys, and I'd open the house myself. I'd be the first one to open my house. And she looks over to me and she says, Martine, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you that I had that idea or that dream. And when I saw you in the house and I saw the door open, it made me so sad because I couldn't do my dream. And so I said, Sylvia, we haven't gotten confirmation that we closed the house had closed yet. We get this thing called confirmation when it's actually officially closed. I said, we haven't gotten that, and it'll probably be any time now. So why don't you guys go drive, get in the car. And before I could tell her what to do, she just took off and she left her purse there. Hector grabbed her purse. I went and turned off all the lights, closed all the doors, and I went and stood by the curb because I didn't even want to be on the property. And then they went around the block and came back. And then as they were coming back, they parked on the street. And so Sylvia came out and gave me a hug. And to this day, I still get business from them. The point is not that I get business from them. The point is that in both these stories, curiosity, that was the catalyst. Curiosity was the thing that changed the situation. So then I said, I hope it can make a difference for Yvette. So what I did is I ran back to the car, got in the car, drove home. I walked in the house and I used curiosity. I said, honey, I'm curious. Can you tell me what I did to upset you? And I could tell she had been crying. So she stopped for a second. She looked at me and she started to tell me. And she told me what I did that day. Something I completely was oblivious to. I didn't even know I had done anything. So we start getting ready. We end up going to Mediterranean food. As we're driving, I'm saying, is there anything else that I did? I'm curious. Is there anything else I did that bothered you? And she told me some stuff that I had done that week. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just kept asking her questions. I'm curious. Is there anything else that I've done that's bothered you? And then she showed me some stuff that I did like the month. And we were, at that point, we had been married for 17 years. She went back all the way until since we had first met. And she told me all the stuff that I had done that had bothered her. But this is the thing, guys. And I know if you're watching this video, if you're in a relationship, if you're married, I'm sure your wife has told you all kinds of things that you've done to upset her. But the difference was that day for me, because she had told me stuff, a lot of things that had bothered her throughout our relationship. But the difference was that day I was actually authentically curious. I was being curious. And what I learned that day is that curiosity, it does something to our minds, it does something to our brains. And in the workshop, that's what we're going to talk about. So let me finish the story really quick. So we get back to the house. We go out, have a great time. We go dancing, all that. We get back to the house, have another great night, if you know what I mean. And she goes to bed, and I started to journal. It was probably about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning when I started journaling. About 5 o'clock, I'm still journaling. And I did literally 60 pages of journaling that night, because everything she had said, I wrote down, and some ideas I had written down. And then she's walking by me. The couch is here and the kitchen's over here. So she's walking by me, behind me on the couch. And as she walks by to get some water in the morning, I say, honey, can you tell me why you told me all that stuff last night? And, you told me stuff that I had done, from when we first met, when we got married, even this week and last, all this stuff. And she said, honey, I felt I felt safe to talk to you. And I felt like I could trust you. And as we started to talk more, I felt like you respected everything I was saying. And I'll tell you something, a lot of stuff she said that night, the night before, I didn't agree with. I wasn't agreeing with her that I had done some of the stuff. And I think she was completely wrong. But what happened is I just stayed curious, and I didn't debate her on it. I just stayed curious and kept asking her questions. And what I had learned that day, that morning, is that curiosity causes these three things. It causes people to feel safe. It causes people to feel that they can trust you, and then they're going to talk more and more and more. And it has people feel like they're respected. And that's what we're going to be talking about this week in Men's Breakthrough, is we're going to be talking about the power of curiosity and where trust, safety, and respect lie in the realm of communication, and why it's so vital, and how you can put it into your relationships.